Okay, we're live.
We're live. Okay, I'd like to call to order the Eureka Springs Hospital Commission meeting on July the 18th, 2022 at 6 o'clock.
Exactly, yeah.
And I'd like to welcome our new commissioner, Katie Dreyer. And we'll have a roll call, please.
Kent Turner, Treasurer.
Mike Dwyer, Commissioner.
Kate Dreyer, Commissioner.
Sharon Doremus, Commissioner.
Judy Giggy, Secretary.
And I'm Barbara Dix, Chair. Okay, so the first thing is approve the minutes from June 20th, 2022. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, or is there any
Just
changes or additions to it? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
None opposed. Minutes are approved. Motion to approve the agenda as written.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any additions or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I don't see public out there, so I guess we don't have public comments. And committee reports. I think the only standing committee is finance,
Well, we've been busy.
and you've been busy.
We've been busy. We continue to have our meetings. We've had a few bumps, but for the most part, we continue to have a finance meeting on Wednesdays of every week. They've been very productive, I think. We're getting things organized. I'm hearing lots of good things. The biggest thing is at the meeting a week before last, we went through a draft of the capital budget, which will be for next year. So it's capital budget's well underway, and I'm real pleased about that. I'll ask Bill. I think we're getting on the same page, aren't we?
Yes, sir, we are. I have a proposed working budget for us to discuss at our next meeting.
Okay.
And we can go from there. So I was able to take June, and I projected, the rest of a year, and we'll go from there. So we have a working model to go forward from there.
If we can keep all of our accountants doing accounting, finance work as opposed to having to cook, which they had to do some this week, and I understand the reason for that, but it's that's really a all-around job around there. So, but I'm very pleased with how things have progressed over the last month.
Yes. Okay. CEO report. She is sick and not here tonight, so I guess we won't have that. She didn't mail one. I didn't get one, so anyway. So we'll move on to the CFO, to Bill.
Okay. I will kind of report on what Angie and I have been working on. We talked about some, and we're not going to get into specifics, so I don't think we have to go into executive session or anything like that. She and I were talking about increases in pay and working through that to see what we wanted to do for the rest of this year and into next year. And we want to, our pay rates are not what they should be according to our market. So we want to do some market adjustments and try to move forward so that we can attract the quality staff that we need to take care of the patients that we see. So we're working on that. When we go to the finance report, first thing I must report is that the money market that I reported is the same, if you'll notice, as the commission money market.
I saw
On
that.
page 1, thank you. Wish somebody would have called me earlier today. So I just now saw it 15 minutes ago, honest to goodness. It should be at $1,031,457 and a total of $3,345,222, which is actually a decrease from last month of $721,572. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we did have to pay back over $400,000 to Medicare for our 21 cost report. Once we did that, that reduced our available cash. We have been digging into our reserves, as it were, during our slow months, and that's pretty typical of a critical access hospital. As we get into, we're being paid based on last year, okay, at any given point in time. And then we move into the current year. When we hit our slow spot in the summer, even though our revenue was up, our inpatient volume was down. That typically drives everything, is that inpatient volume. And so, with that said, our cash flow, we've been using our cash reserves. I want to report at this time that I have done a 6-month interim cost report through June, and this is with the exception of the Medicaid position that we have. I do not have a Medicaid. It's what we call a PSNR, which is a summary of claims paid. So I was not able to complete the Medicaid portion, but I was able to complete the Medicare portion, and I'm happy to report that where we paid them $400,000 last year, we're at break even, if you will, with them this year. So as it goes right now, we do not owe them a bunch of money for claims paid through this point in the year. So I'm pleased with that. Now, when we move forward, you'll notice that our revenue on our revenue and usage summary for the hospital and the clinic, that our total revenue is $1.488 million, which is the highest of the 6 months that we report for this year. We're up 7.4% from last month and 11.7% from last year. So it's a very good deal. But most of that is outpatient volume, which is not heavily cost concentrated. Our inpatient volume typically drives our cost for the most part because we have to staff for running a hospital. And our outpatient volume comes from people, either doctor's orders or ER visits drive that. So when we look at our income statement, we're looking, the thing that brought my attention was our total patient revenue for this year, $7.458 million versus $6.185 last year, is a 20% increase in our gross revenue. That's always a good thing. So we look down the page, we'll notice our contractual adjustments, our bad debts, our other operating revenue, and then we'll come to net revenue of $4,597,000. That is on the accrual basis. Roger, this last month, was able to go back through and get an updated claims payment history. We had been relying on last year, waiting on some significant data to come in for this year. We did that. He updated the contractual adjustments that we make against our accounts receivable, and so we were able to increase some of our net revenue for the year. Total operating expenses, $4.226 million versus $3.692. That's an increase of total patient revenue before bad debts and interest expense of over $500,000, $535,000. So while we increased our gross revenue, we also had to increase our expenditures. And part of that was in our salary increases that we did. If you remember, we raised our minimum wage from $11 basically to $15. And so that affected, we have roughly 75 full-time equivalents. So that's not a huge staff. So that affects a pretty good portion of our staff. And that's what I addressed earlier, is that we're doing our salary review. We will see how that works out. Right now, Angie and I have not had time to go back and discuss that, but we've gone through it a couple of times. We're almost ready to come up and formulate a plan on what we want to do. So we have an operating margin that is positive, and then once we add in our depreciation, amortization, interest expense, and non-operating revenue, we come back to a net income year-to-date of $377,000, which is very good, but it's probably driven by grant revenue. On the next page, we'll note that we had our accounts receivable, patient accounts receivable less bad debts, the allowance for bad debts. That's a net increase from this month to last month of $283,000. When you add the $425,808 less the $142,719, $283,000 increase in accounts receivable. And that's due to that volume increase we had this last month. Then we look down in our property and equipment. You'll note our buildings and improvements. We increased our signage out in front of the ER, $21,700, and we added a disinfectant system. That disinfectant system was brought to us by grant revenue. So that's some of that non-operating revenue that's coming in from the government, and we're thankful for that. So that's basically what it is on our balance sheet. Everything else is pretty well what it is. So, and I apologize for that boo-boo on the, I'll just have to be more careful. What happens now with the bank, when that comes off, we have 3 accounts all together. We have the 2 commission, well, we have the 2 money market accounts, pardon me, and the, I'm fumbling, excuse me just a moment. And the regular checking account all come through on the same statement. So I got confused and I made a mistake, and I apologize for that.
Having spent a year looking at those, I can understand that. That is one confusing bank statement.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, sir.
And Bill,
And what I will do is, yes, ma'am.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just waiting on you. I thought you had a comment.
I was just wondering if you could send this face sheet out to us again corrected.
Yes, ma'am, I will. I'll do
Okay,
that
and I'll
here.
see that all the commission gets it. And
Yes,
I
and
have one more question for the commission. It is my understanding that we don't vote on pay raises, that will be the CFO and Angie and the Finance Committee to okay.
We went through that a year ago. That's absolutely correct. It's
Okay.
none of our, they run the hospital, we don't, okay?
Okay.
They set the salaries, we don't. We set Angie's salary, but we don't set anybody else's.
That was my understanding, and I had told Bill that, but I just needed to double check with you
No.
guys.
And
Okay.
I was very cautious to say that we don't seek your approval, but we don't want your disapproval at the end of the road.
No, and
So
we
what
just-
we will do, my last comments to Angie, and like I said, we've just not gotten back together, is that I said, well, why don't we do an increase now, and then we do another increase later in the year, as opposed to all of it at once. So that was my thought, suggestion, because once I did that interim cost report, and I haven't been able to do one up till now, Kent. We've been doing this for a year and a half. We've been winging it on interim information. I didn't feel comfortable until now to be able to do an interim cost report. And that's something I don't do monthly, but at least quarterly for my clients. And that's, it just gives us a, where are we and what's going on and what's happening, because I don't want us to get overpaid like we did last year. There's nothing I could do about that, but I don't want us to get that much underpaid either. So we now have good information coming in every month on the accrual basis. So I know what our expenses are, I know what our revenue is, so I can do an interim cost report and feel comfortable that I'm putting forth good information. The only X in that is that I have to get a payment summary from both Medicare and Medicaid. And Medicaid is a state function, and they drag their feet. And so I apologize for their tardiness on that. But we'll probably do one again in a couple of months. Our cost report is not that complex. It's important. I'm not belittling that, but it is not terribly complex. So we don't have a bunch of moving parts. We have some. So
Okay, Bill, I appreciate your work. Thank you. Any questions
you.
for Bill? I guess you're off the hook, buddy.
thank you, ma'am. I
Okay.
either confuse them enough that they won't ask questions, or they'll come up with the questions tomorrow.
Well,
So
if they're like-
If you ever have,
If they're like
you know,
me, they
really-
can't read these small numbers. Maybe
thank
that's
you.
it.
He does that on
I do
purpose,
that on
Bobby.
purpose, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you? Okay,
But if
well,
y'all ever have questions, please call me.
I should probably
that goes
bring
for
my
all of y'all.
iPad up here because I can see them on the iPad, just not on paper.
Well, the alternative to the small numbers is big computer sheets.
Oh. Yeah.
Green bar, I love it.
Green bar.
Yeah, Kent, there you go, baby. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Our next agenda item is approval of credentialing for Dr. Bonner and Dr. Barrows. And Bree at the hospital is in charge of that, and she does all the credentialing and we just have to okay the names. So again, if you have any questions, you can call Bree and ask her. I read through them before I sign them, but for what that's worth. Okay? So could I have a motion to credential Dr. Bonner and Dr. Barrows?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Everybody in favor? Anybody? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. So that's approved. Thank you. Now, we have commission comments. Do we have any comments from the commissioners? Sharon?
No comments.
No comment?
No comments.
Comment.
No, ma'am.
Well, I also don't have any comments.
Here we go.
So I would take a motion to adjourn at 6:18.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.